Welcome to Movie Boners.
That seemed to take longer than usual.
I know, that was a long countdown. What?
I tried setting you up for a perfect That's What She Said joke, and you completely let me down.
Sorry, my B.
Welcome to Movie Boners, everybody.
Welcome to Movie Boners, where I let down Dustin time after time.
And vice versa.
Yeah. So what beer you got going on over there?
So, I have no beer that has any correlation to the movie we're talking about. Like at all. So, I got this. It's called Two Hearted Ale.
Ooh. Oh, I've seen that before.
It's an American IPA from Comstock, Michigan.
Okay.
At Bell's Brewery. It's pretty good. I like IPAs. This is a pretty good IPA. So, bravo, guys.
I'm also in the IPA vein today. And it's from one of my favorite breweries in town, Horse and Dragon. It's one I hadn't had before. It's called Haze and Dragon.
Ooh.
And it's a hazy IPA. They are probably the best brewery in town. I would say it's as good as it gets.
Oh, and I just thought of a connection for both of us. We are both drinking IPAs, which
correct
to the general public can be very bitter, very off-putting, but ultimately very satisfying,
offensive,
very good, and has a lot to offer, actually, as it turns out. Bam!
That's actually, wow, that was so deep and perfect. Well done.
I didn't even plan that. I really didn't plan that. I was just, you were talking, I was like, oh my God, it's an IPA.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So on the topic of finding meaning in things.
Yes.
Let's get into our movie this week, As Good as It Gets.
Yeah, from 1997. Pre-forced PC culture, pre-forced all this. Okay, so you have never seen it until this week.
I hadn't. And I did have the same thoughts you just mentioned, that this is pre-PC culture, but even though you think of the 90s as not really being woke, it's still pretty clear and pretty evident to me that he's supposed to come across as an asshole and a jerk and who is offensive. So people just, and that's always funny to me going back and watching things. You like watch movies from like the 80s and the 70s, and it's like, no, these people were still, I mean, you still got it. It wasn't like the Dark Ages or whatever.
Right. So this has always been a movie, it came out in 97. So I was still fairly young when I watched this movie. And I always just thought it was like funny and silly. And then I became an adult and rewatched it and was like, oh my God, this is real life. And there's a lot to offer from this movie. And I think that every time I watch it. But I'm very nervous and curious to find out. You just watched it.
I watched it for the very first time.
What did you think?
Last night.
Oh, dang.
I know. I kind of was putting it off, but I wanted it to be fresh in my mind. That's exactly what I thought. Is exactly what you just said. I thought that this is a very real life movie. It's interestingly, the characters are complex. They're not like, I guess, stereotypes or two-dimensional characters that are just one way. There, you have very complex characters and very complex relationships, and that leads to complex character growth throughout the movie, which I really liked. I thought it was among the best character growth and good reasons for it and all that stuff. But like the way that the movie is directed and done, it's a lot of the scenes where you might expect them to just like throw in music to like make it lighter or make it feel a certain way. There's like no music in that scene. And so the conversation and the like, it can kind of just linger, or the uncomfortableness can kind of like linger. And it feels real, or maybe like a play, like just like authentically done. And so I thought that was really interesting, and I thought it was interestingly paced and all that stuff. It was, I didn't, for a movie that's been around a lot, that you've heard a lot about, for most of those kinds of movies that I haven't seen, I still feel like I know a lot about it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that much about it going into it. I just knew who was in it, and that was about it.
Right. So you enjoyed it?
I would say that I liked it. I did like it a lot. And I can definitely see it being the kind of movie that grows on me the more I watch it.
Yeah.
But I saw it and I laughed at some parts. I felt emotionally connected to it at other parts. But I think, and then as I was watching it, it felt very comfortable too. Like, I feel like it's the kind of movie that I could just put on and watch, and it would be comfortable to watch at any time. So I think it could grow on me a lot over time.
It is. It's one of those movies where you kind of hit the nail on the head with that. It's a very comfortable movie when at times it's very comfortable. Other times you can sit down and watch it, and depending on where you are in your headspace, it's the kind of movie that will like kind of force you to think about a few things in general terms of humanity. And like, it's very abrasive with everyone's life is so fucked up. It's just different levels. It can be emotionally fucked up. It can be like actually, I mean, it is
physically and financially
like, it is
fucked
just,
up.
it's so, and it all really centers around Jack Nicholson's character of Mr. Udall, or Melvin Udall, because he's such an asshole. He might be one of the biggest assholes I've ever seen on screen. But right as you're really supposed to hate him, which you pretty much are like, the movie opens with him dropping a dog down a trash chute. That is the opening credits of the movie.
That's a perfect way to set up, you should not like this person.
Right.
And then you find out it's not his dog, it's someone else's dog. And you're like, you're an extra piece of shit.
Right. And right as you're really like, okay, I don't know if I'm ever going to like buy into this character, you start learning all of these other things about him, like the OCD and there's actual mental illness to him. And you learn more of his character. Oh yeah, spoiler, we will be spoiling the whole thing.
So go and watch it.
Yeah.
I will say as someone who had put it off. Yeah, I will say as someone who put it off, it's worth watching. I should have seen it sooner. So
it's
go and see
so
it before we talk all about it.
Yeah. But you know, you find out, you know, he brings up his dad used to bust his knuckles if he messed up on piano, which kind of gives you the picture that maybe his childhood home was slightly abusive, probably not just physically, but mentally as well. Like verbally,
emotionally for sure.
Yeah. You just get that sense, especially with the OCD, and he has a hard time accepting relationships at all. Everyone is purposely pushed away, which I think is where a lot of the comments that he makes come from. It's like a full defense mechanism. So his character is, the longer the movie goes, the more you realize like, oh, his character is so messed up and he's just so down. And then all of a sudden he hits you with like some of the kindest words, biggest gestures. And you're like, I love this man. What is happening here?
Yeah. And even though he's ostensibly doing it, he's doing these grand gestures primarily from a selfish motivation.
Right.
But there's still, it doesn't take away the fact that he's helping these people out sincerely. They are in need of his help, and he's there for them when nobody else is. And all of a sudden, this person who you hated and still are like, he's still prickly. You're still kind of off put.
Well, yeah, because in the same moment he does something amazing and beautiful, he says something that is so horrible. You're like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah, you can't say that. Yeah, and so I think that he is extremely complicated. He has these certainly mental illness and OCD and just like a germaphobe, and I think a lot of what you said is a defense mechanism to purposely keep people away, and he makes them not like him so he doesn't have to get invested. But it may also be easier or natural for him because he seems to, when Helen Hunt's character confronts him, Carol, she confronts him and she's like, that was really mean. You need to apologize right now. It takes him a long time to be like, I understand what you're saying. I'm sorry I did that. He kind of has like a deeper seated lack of empathy, or maybe unable to interact in social situations in a normal way, maybe on the spectrum a little bit. He's a very interesting guy for someone who's comes across immediately as an asshole.
Yeah. And a lot of like his little things, when I watched it at a younger age, I didn't understand, you know. I remember laughing at him washing his hands and like throwing the bar of soap away and then grabbing a new one to wash his hands with. I remember chuckling and being like, man, he's wasting all this soap. Then you're an adult and you've learned more. And then watching that scene again, it's very like, oh my God, his disorder is so severe.
Yeah.
The germaphobe is so severe. He doesn't even trust soap, which is self-cleaning.
You really can't get it dirty. But he needs a new package of it every time.
Yeah. And then, so you brought up Helen Hunt. She plays Carol Connolly, a waitress at a New York restaurant, which even in the 90s...
His restaurant. His like favorite the only one he'll go to, and she's the only one who will put up with him.
He will interact with, like... I mean, he's still a dick to her, but he says dickish things to her.
But she can handle it, I guess. She's
tough. Her character is the kind of character I would never want to piss off. I would never want to have a confrontation with her. And Helen Hunt is brilliant in this movie.
Yeah.
At no point, the whole cast, the entire cast, at no point do you ever feel like, oh, this is just Jack Nicholson, or oh, this is Helen Hunt, or Greg Kinnear, or even Cuba Gooding Jr. You never get that sense of like, oh, they're just playing characters. They feel like very real, genuine people. Yeah. Astounding to me. Astounding. And Helen Hunt has a couple scenes, emotional scenes, that are like, holy hell. Getting goosebumps right now because one of them's playing right now.
Yeah, she has kind of a tragic story, a tragic life. Not only is she a single mother, but her son has like asthma and immune disorders, and constantly sick, constantly struggling, not able to be a kid, constantly needing her attention, and
like constantly in quarantine. And she has to go to work. And she's a waitress, which can't pay very much. So and this is in the 90s where it was even a little bit worse. You know, there was no minimum wage or anything for them. It was like, here you get $2 an hour or whatever it is, and hopefully you make tips today.
And she seems to work like lunches. I mean, I don't know how she's not just up to her. Maybe she is up to her eyeballs in debt. And
I mean, you kind of get that sense when her and her mom is staying with her and helping her out with her son. And there's a scene where a doctor comes to visit them, and they start handing him all of their like receipts and bills of just everything that's piled on, and just seeing the handfuls upon handfuls of bills and receipts. You're like, God,
it stresses me out.
It does. Like, her character is stressful to watch, because you feel for her right out of the gate. I mean, her first scene, you learn about her son being sick and how he can't go outside because it could possibly kill him.
Yeah, it's really tragic.
And then Greg Kinnear, he plays the neighbor whose dog is dumped down the trash chute, Verdell.
Yes. Yeah.
He happens to be gay, and he's an artist.
Yep.
Who gets robbed, and well, not just robbed, but beaten, like with a coat
he
rack.
walks in on the guys robbing him. They're essentially junkies, and as a Scream fan, I was very excited to see
that you recognize two of them. Yeah,
yeah, two Scream alums are junkies that rob him and beat him basically nearly to death.
Yeah,
he comes out looking real terrible. But yeah, Greg Kinnear is kind of one of the. I mean, he's the third leg on the stool. You need him to hold up the rest of the movie as well, and his character is really interesting. As his interactions with Melvin are interesting for sure, because Melvin is very probably targets most of his. I'll call it abuse, but I think that he's partly, like you said, saying these things to keep him at a distance or get a rise out of him. Just, it's not, I don't know. I don't think that it's true bigotry, because he also at the same time will do very nice things for him.
He does a couple incredible things.
Like he will say things that are like targeting, but in the exact same like scene, he wants this guy to like be happy and have his dog like him and go to him and just to make him happy that his dog likes him again. So it's, I think that it's more just saying it to say it, or saying it to like prove he can or something.
Yeah, well, it's, to me, Melvin's character becomes he's the most interesting character of the movie, because he has the most character development through the course of the film. I just lost my train of thought. Oh, so he's very confrontational. He's very kind of abusive in what he says. I mean, he's got some lines that are very like, "Oh my God, did you
obviously
say that?"
offensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is when someone comes back at him and confronts him, he has no response. And he actually will kind of cower away, and kind of like he can no longer make eye contact. He doesn't know what to do. So
or if he gets in a physical altercation and someone starts like touching him or threatening to touch him. Yeah. So he's very vulnerable. He's kind of like in a glass house.
Throwing
stones at people.
Very vulnerable. Doesn't have quite as tough of skin as he wants the world around him to think. And what's funny is how Carol, the waitress, and Simon, I won't finish the line, kind of at some point in the film, he just allows them to break into that glass house, to allow, they are a part of it. They see the vulnerable version of him, and you get the sense like they might be the only two people, and the dog, that might ever see this character's vulnerability. Who knows? I do want to go. We can't talk about this movie without talking about Verdell the dog, because the dog ends up becoming the biggest crutch of the film, the biggest catalyst
for change.
Yes. Yeah. And it's this ugly little furry dog.
Yeah, it's one of those little shitty, small, yappy dogs. But it's so it has the best. I see why they chose it, because it has the best face. It does a sad face so well that it does make your heart melt. And you can understand how it makes Melvin's heart melt, and he kind of falls in love with it. Yeah.
So, okay, I know I had told you when I was like, hey, maybe we could dive into As Good as It Gets. And you even mentioned it too when you put up the teaser of Dustin thinks there's a lot in this movie. Or how'd you put it?
That the meaning in it has changed over time a lot, I think.
Something like that. It has a lot to offer.
It does.
So the movie is technically listed as a romantic comedy. I do not take it as a romantic comedy, although love is kind of what the whole movie is essentially about, but not just romance.
Yeah.
And the dog is the one that really forces that kind of perspective. It's, to me, I think it's awesome how Melvin is trying to write, because he's an author. He's an established author, a pretty successful author.
I think, considering how much money he spends in this movie, he's a very successful author.
Yeah, or he's just very good with his money as well. So he could be obviously very successful, but he kind of strikes me as the kind of person that's actually like, he's pretty good with his finances. So he's probably... and that's part of the benefits of being OCD. You're very organized and he spends a lot in this movie, and without a thought. But he so Simon gets beat up, robbed in the hospital, gets told you're completely broke, you're losing your apartment. He was doing an art show and it didn't go well at all, so now he's basically lost everything with his medical bills. But while he's recovering, Melvin is kind of forced to take care of Verdell the dog. Yeah. And it's like the scene that really gives you the impression the movie's going to shift. It's going to oh, we're on this journey. Okay. I think I get it. And that's Melvin going back into the apartment after Verdell has been put in the apartment. Yeah. And, in his apartment that nobody else has ever been allowed into. Ever. And now you have this hairy, germ-carrying beast just running around his apartment, and it's a huge change to his very consistent lifestyle. There's no gradual or slow baby stepping towards change. It's very, this is happening. Now you have to adapt to this. And I love how Jack Nicholson, oh my God. I know. So that was another big thing. Getting away from Verdell the dog. No, you're good. You're good. Because Verdell brings all of this out. It's true. That's why you bring up Verdell. Yeah. The dog, what the dog does to Jack Nicholson, the way Jack Nicholson responds, just the way Jack Nicholson is, it's amazing to watch him act and be and move and everything he does with his face and how he just, when he's not even really in the scene, his character is watching the scene and watching the people talk to each other. He's so fascinating and so incredible. I would really like to, maybe we should do this in the future, do a Jack Nicholson episode, because I'd like to watch a lot of his movies back to back and kind of see his progression and see just everything he does, because he's amazing. This is one of those movies where when you watch him, you fully understand why Jack Nicholson is so revered and so held on such, a pedestal. Yeah, he's so incredible to watch. And this kind of Jack Nicholson, everyone knows Jack Nicholson from The Shining and being like, he's so intense, and from dramas where he's very intense and kind of frightening. You watch this movie and now he's showing this whole vulnerability. I mean, every time I watch the movie, when he closes the door right after Verdell is given to him, and it does that close-up profile of him after he locks the door 5 times, and he's breathing, and you just see the I don't know how I can process it. It's an actual, it feels it's real. Panic. Yeah. Yeah. If you've ever had a panic attack or tried to fight off an anxiety attack, watching him in that quick scene, you're very much yep. Yeah, I've been there. Oh God. Too real. Yeah. And like you said with the music, there's no music on that scene. You are forced, they really force you to sit in the awkwardness, to sit and like, yeah, you're going to be uncomfortable. Yeah. This is part of it.
Yeah. Like, yeah. And hear the sound of his apartment, just hear like his breathing, just, you're so there. You're not like watching a movie scene. You're just there watching what's happening.
And you want to get out. You're like,
yeah,
man, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But watching him learn what love is on like a mm-hmm. human scale, on a basic love scale in general.
Yeah.
It all comes
caring for something besides himself starts with
starting to lose
dog.
Selfishness, and watching him with the dog is so awesome to watch. And you brought it up earlier where you said the movie has some of the best character development out of so many films because it all feels genuine, but watching him go from like, we don't want no damn dog, we don't need no dog, you eat what we eat, we don't want dog food here, you know, to all of a sudden like spoiling the dog. It's almost like the dog is trying to show him, no, you can drop the act, dude. Like, I've officially seen you low point, so here we go. You know,
yeah, and it's pretty amazing how quickly it happens. That one of the simplest but most effective and maybe most impactful scenes is when he goes to the restaurant, because he always goes to the restaurant, and he leaves the dog outside, and his care for the dog, concern for the dog, actually forces him to break his routine and move tables. He doesn't sit at the table he always sits at. And I was like, oh, this dog is like severely affecting this guy.
Yeah. And within a pretty short amount of time, which kind of gives you the impression a little more time has gone by than maybe just a day or so. But yes.
Yeah. When Simon comes back and says, like, or maybe it's Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character, one of them, says that it's like been weeks since he's been in the hospital for weeks. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know that much time had passed, but it makes sense.
But yeah, him leaving his table, which typically like people with OCD, I mean, when they have that routine, they need to stick with the routine. But to see the effect that this dog has had on him, where, he's like, oh, I got to move over to this table so I'm closer. You're like, oh, he's breaking apart, but not in a bad way. Like, this isn't like a meltdown. He is like the shell is falling off. And I love Helen Hunt in that scene. She's like, okay.
The things that are blocking him are entirely mental. Like, his neuroses are just mental. And so it seems like all the times that he stops being OCD, it's because he just wasn't thinking about it. He forgot to think about it, or when he's thinking about it, he obsesses about it and he has to do it. But when he just moves tables, he just doesn't think about it. He's like, oh, I just have to move tables. Oh, I forgot to lock the door 5 times, or he just forgets to and moves on.
You jumped ahead, but
yeah,
I forgot to lock the door. We'll get to that. That scene, I'm always like, oh my God. It happened like just a few simple words be so grand. So the story ends up becoming, Simon comes home from the hospital. He's losing everything. And his last effort is to go visit his mom and dad, who have disowned him.
Right.
Have rejected him and asked
I told him to never come home.
Yeah, and have asked him, he's got to go and ask them for money to just try and not be homeless.
Yeah.
Which all the characters, they're not young. All of the characters are in their 40s. Like, these are grown-ups.
Yeah.
Which adds more depth to the movie, I think. This movie is not made for kids. Why I watched it when I was younger, I don't know, because I didn't really get the movie when I was younger. I'm glad I saw it, but it's not for kids. This is a very grown-up film.
Yeah, for several reasons. It's complicated. It deals with like real life things that you would have no concept of as a kid.
Yeah. So Simon comes home and Melvin trying to I skipped a part. They end up going on a road trip to Baltimore to see Simon's parents in the movie.
Yeah.
It's a fun trip.
I didn't know anything about that part. I didn't know that this was like a road trip movie. So as they were setting it up, and they're like, we have to go on this trip, and then Melvin gets roped into taking Simon on this trip, and then he guilts Carol into coming with them. And I was like, what? They're going to go on a trip? Like there's a trip in this movie?
Yeah.
That whole like section, as these very different people are in the car together, learning about each other, bonding, really, was a great way to like show that growth that you see overall, because it's kind of like a pressure cooker where you can make a relationship grow really fast. Like a great example is Carol, Helen Hunt, meets Simon when they like walk up to get into the car. She meets him for the very first time. At the end of the trip, when they're leaving, she's like hugs him, says she loves him. He loves her back. Like they're great friends.
Yeah, they make, and these things happen sometimes, and it's kind of cool seeing it get shown in this movie where two people will just instantly connect and they just
click.
Yeah, like, okay, I guess we are permanently in each other's lives. Like this is what we're doing. Yeah, they're not love. I mean, Simon and Carol have a unique relationship, or at least what you are shown.
Yeah. Well, she's kind of his muse. She becomes his muse as he's struggling to be inspired to paint. That's why I think his art, exhibit or whatever, didn't go very well. But so that's kind of getting ahead of ourselves as well, where on this trip, you learn that Jack Nicholson kind of is like getting feelings for Carol, and has like, he wants to like take her out on a date, and he likes her, but he doesn't really know how to describe it because he's so socially awkward.
Which is another huge piece of his character development, because he's kept everyone so distanced. And now he's like, how do I initiate like a romance? And it's the worst way possible, but he
he jumps in with both feet, and that's what counts. But when he like takes her out to dinner and has to like go and get a suit because he can't use the restaurant's suit jacket and tie, and then ends up saying something mean that he doesn't really mean to be mean. It's just like, that's the way he talks.
Yeah.
And so she demands that he compliment her, and he works his way around to complimenting her, and she's like caught so off guard because it started out so like terrible, like he's doing such a terrible job, and then all of a sudden says the nicest thing that anyone's ever said to her.
So I know a long time ago, we talked about, I think it was our drama or romance episodes. It was one of those. We talked about Jerry Maguire, and we were like, this is a movie every male wishes they could have come up with the lines, right? And all this.
Yeah.
So Jack Nicholson's character, Melvin Udall, has a couple lines where as a male, you are like, oh my God, that line has to be used. And his big compliment to her, the first big compliment to her, is one of them. And yet, you are, not only is she taken so off guard, you as the audience are like, whoa.
Yeah.
That is, oh my God. And she totally like, in that second, just, yep, I'm going to sleep with him. We're doing this. There is no question.
For you now.
And then he opens his mouth again, and you're like, oh my God.
And then she leaves, very quickly leaves, and changes rooms and decides to stay with Simon because one, he's gay, and B, she doesn't want Melvin to come and like talk to her after,
because she's
so she just wants to
pretty
like escape.
pissed off.
Yeah, and that's when she becomes Simon's muse, because she's just drawing about. And there's really interesting parts where Simon talks about how he gets his inspiration from painting. He just likes to watch people be themselves, and he sees the like beauty in everyday life. So she's, drawing a bath, getting ready, and he just becomes like obsessed. Like he draws like all kinds of pictures with her like all night, and just can't get enough of and rips off his cast in order to draw better. And she inspires him, and so they become really close as part of that. But I think also they're good. They have good conversations. They understand each other and work well together.
You get the sense that it wasn't just her posing for him and being kind of amused, but you really get the sense they have a friendship that's very deep now. Like they have huge trust for each other. They genuinely have love for each other. And it is kind of crazy how she becomes like a muse to both of them for kind of the same thing of improving your life.
Yeah.
And she plays it so well, where she's constantly like, why am I the one? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they do the road trip, and then they come back. We'll get to the ending here in a little while. But we should talk about Carol. So her character, her son is sick, could possibly die really at any moment. You see her on a date that someone else had to set up for her.
Trying to
figure something out.
That guy she dates, by the way.
Super creepy.
Creepy, weird. I don't know how she puts up with any of that.
I'm so glad he's only in the movie for the one scene. And I
think she knows that she doesn't get many opportunities, and I think that she wants it to work so bad that she's willing to put up with a lot. Yeah, she just kind of,
although her facial expression when he licks her forehead. Sidebar. You heard that right, people that haven't watched it, or if you have watched it. When they're making out.
Yeah.
And he you think he's going to just kiss her neck or something because he moves away from her mouth. And then he just...
do something normal,
right,
at least.
But instead, he licks in a straight line across her forehead. And her response is so awesome because it's that very what the fuck is this? Why is it happening to me?
Yeah.
And then I guess this is what we're doing. Because, she's just like, I have to deal with it.
Yeah, it's the best thing you've got right now, I guess.
And then her son gets sick. She goes, checks on him. He throws up. She goes back. Him grabbing her.
And her mom is there who had put on headphones to give her privacy, but she's like...
But I love all those little things about her home because it looks like it would be a very nice apartment.
But it's like a tiny, maybe one-bedroom studio. Like, not studio, but one-bedroom apartment when they're trying to make rooms by putting up
curtains
sheets and stuff.
Yeah, and... although it's a pretty decent apartment, you can tell times are rough. So they've had to adapt the apartment how they can. They're trying to, she's a 40-year-old woman living with her mom who has to
in New York, which is not cheap.
And she lives in Manhattan, or she works in Manhattan, but she works in Manhattan.
She probably has to commute, I'm sure.
Yeah. So you understand her situation sucks. So she happens to be on a date. She's gonna deal with the week.
throws up on her, and then she tries to go back to her date, and that's
the way he gropes her both times. To me, I don't know what it is, but first off, any guy that just walks into a woman's apartment and immediately is I'm just going to lay you down and we're doing this.
Yeah, he like picks her up in like the weirdest way and then does like, he's like tries to do like a dip kiss thing, but it's very weird from the outset. And then, yeah, he's just like, and this is their first date. And he's just like, I'm going to take you to this couch and we're going to make out. And I always feel kind of weird watching actors grope
one another
because it takes me out of it kind of, because I'm like, you are not these characters, you are actors, and this guy is now groping you. And it just seems, it takes me out of it a little bit.
And he's a little aggressive with it too.
He's very aggressive with it.
Weird
and awkward. He's just like this skinny, weird. I know I'm a skinny, weird guy, but I at least have some social, ability.
He's a douche. And then, yeah, she comes back after taking care of her son. And he's like pretending to smoke, and he like makes the cigarette disappear when she's freaking out. And he's like, magic. And she goes,
trying too hard to be charming.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, look at that. And you as the audience is like, oh, what a dick. Like,
yeah, total douchebag.
Yes. This guy sucks. Don't be in the movie anymore. But yeah, he doesn't even like try to be sweet. She walks over to him, and he immediately is like, boob.
Yeah.
With a little bit of throw up.
He doesn't say, like, is your kid okay? Like, how did that go? He's just like, let's get back to it.
Right. And then he's like...
And her response is great. Her response is when he touches the vomit on her, and she's like, oh, well, serves you right.
Yeah, well, that'll teach you.
Yeah.
He's such a douche. I hate that character so much. You're supposed to, but like, he's all butt hurt because her kid is sick and he's not getting laid right there. And she's like, well, what do you want to do next? You know, and she kind of says it like, I guess I could tell you what trains you could take home or whatnot. And it's like, no, I'll take a cab. Like,
yeah. I mean, yeah, you like get a glimmer of hope that he's nice because he's like, oh, no, that's okay. And you're like, oh, he's going to stay. He's like, I'll take a cab. And you're like, oh, well, he's a dick.
Like, oh, he's bailing immediately. He's not even going to try and like learn about her.
Yeah.
God, I hate that guy. But her whole, and she's constantly down on herself because she's constantly stressing about her child, which very understandable. And
she has very late nights that anything can happen at any time, that she has to just take him to the hospital and so there are several scenes where she's working at the restaurant because she has to, and Melvin comes in and he starts to ask her like personal questions, which is another great part of his growth, where he goes out of his way to like learn about her and learn about her son and what his name is and what his deal is, and why he asked her in like the most terrible way, why do you like look like this? Why is your face ugly or whatever? But and then he actually gets down to what he means, which is, I noticed that you have like rings around your eyes. You look tired. And she explains that she's up all night. And so I think she does a good job of being patient with him and keeping him accountable for saying things that are inappropriate, but at the same time, not completely writing him off as hopeless.
Yeah. She gives him a lot of grace because let's be real.
Yeah.
If anyone spoke to you or to me or anyone the way he does sometimes to people, it would very much be like writing your existence off. Goodbye.
Fuck off. Get out of here.
But she gives him a lot of grace, which is telling because it's almost like she just wants that same kind of grace given to her because of her situation. So you can kind of tell there's a lot of like empathy there. She can tell there's something else going on. He just says such dickish things to her that he's like, at one point she's like, does anyone care to hear what Melvin has to say? No.
Yeah. Raise your hand. Yeah.
That you brought up him asking her son's name. I love that scene because of how it ties in later on. So he asks like his name, and that's how he asks. He just like, I need his name. And she says Spencer, and she pauses and she says Spence, kind of like that loving mother, like, but I call him this.
Yeah.
And he kind of like, okay. Like, and you kind of take it as, oh, he's just selfish reasons because he just wants her to be able to give him his eggs. And
yeah.
But then later on in the movie, he repeats that to her. And it's such a cool moment because you realize, like, the dude has been soaking up. He's actually been listening and investing into what these people have told him.
Paying attention, remembering, caring about these things. It's not just stuff happening in the background.
Yeah.
He explains that he's been listening while he's waiting for his food and listening to what's going on in her life. And so he demonstrates that he cares.
Yeah,
really
and it's pretty cool. And Carol, God, her character just goes through so much. And what I love is, as dramatic and intense as all of their storylines actually are, the movie is genuinely hilarious. Like, it has some really funny parts in it. Usually you laugh out of being uncomfortable at the things that Melvin will say, but everyone has funny parts in the movie.
Yeah, I laughed several times.
There is one line that you can tell he purposely says just to cut off a conversation, just to be able to get away and to, like, don't ever talk to me again. And that's the receptionist at the publishing office.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so, like, there were a couple of lines that I knew from without even seeing the movie. And one is that line where she's a mega fan of his writing. And she's like, how do you write women so well? He says, I think of a man and I take away reason and accountability.
And just walks off into the elevator and leaves. And she is left stunned. And you are laughing because you can't believe he actually fucking said that. And then you're also kind of like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. And the other line that I knew, which was fun to get to and see it in context, was when he answers the door to his apartment and is talking, and he's like, go so crazy somewhere else. We're all stuck up here. Yeah. It's hard to not say it as him. That was another really fun part of it, is the couple of times that Greg Kinnear, impersonates Jack Nicholson. He does such a good job. A really good job. It's really fun.
He even, like, changes his facial expression to kind of be Nicholson-esque. Yeah, oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So the cartridge, well, before that, Melvin's first huge gesture, although, see, he claims it's for a selfish reason, but I'm not convinced that it's entirely, at least that surface selfishness.
Yeah.
I think it is still for selfish reasons because he wants her back so that she can be there for her and with him. He tells her, I need you back at the restaurant to serve me. But to me, it's a little more than that. But every time I watch it, it's almost inspiring where you're like, I wish I could just do that for someone. So she's coming home and she sees the doctor's car in front of her building and immediately panics. And you, as the audience member, immediately are like, oh my God, don't mess with the kid. Please don't mess with this kid.
Yeah. If this kid dies, I'm out of this movie.
Right. Like, I'm going to hate the movie. Oh, hey, your Greg Kinnear scene just played.
Perfect timing.
A little piss ass womp. Piss ass mom. And then you had to have chuckled at the random director cameos in this movie.
Yeah.
Okay. So Shane Black has a cameo. Sure. Harold Ramis has a cameo.
Yeah. When I saw Shane Black as the manager at the cafe, I was like, wait. I knew he'd, like, been in a couple things, but I didn't remember this being one. And then, Harold Ramis is obvious. That's a huge, awesome one.
Harold Ramis is the doctor, and he plays the doctor so well. He
does
so well. But you find out, like, the doctor's making a house call as kind of a personal favor to his wife, who happens to be Melvin's publisher. And you're like, oh, God. And he's like, you're urgently needed back at work. What do you do? And she's like, I'm a waitress. What?
Yeah. He said that I have to take care of your kid. You need to go back to work. It must be a very important job. Well, I'm a waitress. That doesn't make any sense. But okay.
But like the whole time the mom, her, and the doctor at the table, and he's honest with them. He's very open with them. He's patient with her. And then the big question, because I remember thinking, like, this is a house call by an MD. Like, he seems to be doing all these other tests.
He's running tests, rushing them to get the results the same day, and giving her very personalized attention.
Yeah. So even as a kid, you're like, this is expensive. Like, I don't think she's going to afford all of this care. And then he drops the bomb of like, oh, all finances are being taken care of by Mr. Udall. And you're like, what? Like, holy shit. And I love his response to it, where he's like, don't even worry about it. Like, I don't need a thank you. I don't need any of this. Just, all I need is you to just be around, essentially. Like,
the like thank you letter that she writes him is like,
thank you letter.
And she pulls it out and tries to read it to him at the restaurant. It's like the longest letter of all time.
Which is funny because he tells her to put her thank you in a note. He tells her to write the thank you note. And then when she does and tries to give it to him, he's like, no. I don't. No. And then he turns it into a guilt trip. And that's how she ends up on the car trip of like, this thing I did for you, that working out. She's like, what does she say? That thing you did for me, for us, like completely changed our lives. And he's like, good, because then you can do something for me. And you're like, what a dick. Like, you were doing so well with the like, I don't need any like credit. I don't need anything. And to, oh no, you're going to drop your life for a few days and go on a road trip with me. And he literally manipulates her into it, because she's like, no, I can't do that. I have my kid. I have stuff to do. He's like, oh, well, you can write a note, but if I actually need something from you, then you're not going to be there. And so he calls her on her gratitude, which is very selfish of him. It completely undoes everything that he has been setting up, being nice. Right.
And then the reason that he like tells her later that she wanted her on the trip is like, this is why I think that he's like has to be autistic or something, because he's like, I wanted you to come along because I thought that it maybe he wants to like test Simon's gayness.
Oh yeah, when they go to dinner together. Well, I thought maybe if you had sex with him, and you're like, what the fuck?
What? This is not anything you should ever say to anybody. It's very weird and very awkward.
But he does such like, I love how they wrote the character, how they wrote all of the film in general, of just like, everyone has those moments where you're really on board with them, and then they'll say or do something, and you're like, ooh, that was kind of a low blow. And all of them do it. And there's one scene with Carol and Melvin that I love every time. And it's when she's like, he's come to visit her at home when he finds out that Spencer has been sick. And she's like, do you have any control over how creepy you allow yourself to be and all that? And he's like, I do. And to prove it, I haven't gotten personal, and you have. And you're like, you feel her shittiness of just, You stoop that low. That sucks. That's a bad thing to say.
Yeah, I like that too. It sets her, like, it puts her in the same bucket with all of them, where she's generally, I think my perception was that she's generally nice, gracious, everything we've talked about, but at the same time can be just as bitter, vindictive, and shitty.
Simon has moments like that too. I mean, he tells Melvin that he's an absolute horror of a human being, which the way he says it is almost like, wow, you just dismantled a human being.
Yeah.
And then you kind of understand, like, you get a very deep understanding of where these people can come from, or people like them out in the world can come from, where everyone is the way they are because it's almost like a reaction to how they've been treated. And it's a vicious cycle when it's not
the experiences you've had have formed you into this person you are now.
Yeah.
And then you're met with new situations and you have to decide how to react to them, and you could grow and be better, or you could just react naturally.
Yeah.
And Simon's interesting because he, at the very beginning, is like unable to like stand up for himself, and he like tries so bad to like tell Melvin off with like Cuba Gooding Jr. standing next to him, and then he doesn't. He totally folds, and then later on when he is able to like stand up for himself, have dignity, and I guess command some sort of respect, it's pretty satisfying.
It is
to see him grow.
Here's your sell crazy somewhere else. We're all stocked up here.
I love it.
I am just constantly just blown away at how well the characters grow throughout the film, because it's just so real. And I love how they made sure not to show anyone as like the perfect character. Everyone is so flawed, but are capable of such great and terrible things. I love how the movie shows you on a very real human level, this is how life can be. This is how it is for probably several people out in the world.
And kind of the subtext, or it's not obvious that this is the message, but the more I think about it, I think there is a message in there if you want to see it, that actions speak louder than words in most respects, that a lot of these people say things that are mean or tear them down or offensive or whatever, but then do very nice, genuine, caring things. And so to me, that means that you are not actually mean. You actually are nice.
Yeah.
You just may say mean things as a defense mechanism, or some sort of, you have some reason to do it, and you're doing it maybe because it feels good or some sort of power struggle, but it doesn't. That's the complexity. And I tend to grant more weight to the fact that Melvin takes care of this guy's dog, that he takes him on this trip, that he lets him move in with him. That's one of the
biggest pieces of like confirmation that Melvin is changing, that he's actually acting the compliment that he gave Carol way earlier. You know, you're like,
he's choosing to be a better man than he was before.
Which I love that, because, you know, he's on the phone with Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character, or at least you assume that's who he's talking to. Yeah, Frank.
Yeah.
But you don't quite understand that. You hear like a little glimpse of just put it there for now or whatever, and you're like, oh, they're probably still talking about the dog. And then he does. I can't believe you let Verdell stay in the in that place for this long. You're like, he loves that dog so much.
Yeah.
But then when they get back, you know, Carol has just told him, I don't want to know you, which the way she says it to him is just heartbreaking, because he's tried so hard, and he's like been acknowledging his fuck ups as the movie progresses. He's you can tell he's trying not to continue to do that, but it's such a routine almost for him that it's like,
habit.
Yeah, it takes a long time to break this stuff, these habits, you know. And Simon opens up the door, and like, not only is his stuff in the apartment, but it's like unpacked. It almost looks established, as if Melvin has had this kind of in the works from the get-go. It's kind of like, the more I watch it, the more I'm like, you've been, oh my God, like, knowing that you're going to eventually, Simon's going to see he officially lives here. Like,
you've been organizing it. You've had people move it and set it up, and with the goal, which is accomplished, that when he walks in, he feels at home, basically.
Yeah. Like, welcome.
And feels comfortable. And
then you start thinking, that means several people were just in and out of Melvin's apartment, which is established at the beginning. No one has ever stepped foot in the apartment. So there's a lot more to it, to me, just because I look pretty deep into this movie. It gets me a lot. I love that. And then Carol calls. And I love how Simon, he took me in. Like, that might be the gayest line you have in the whole movie. But
it's really, it was amazing to me that she, after telling him she didn't want anything to do with him, calls him because she didn't mean it, basically. You know that she didn't mean it. And then she discovers that all this stuff, nice stuff he's been doing, he doesn't like do it for her. Like, he doesn't do it and then go tell her, hey, look, I'm being so nice to this guy.
Yeah.
He does it. She kind of finds out accidentally when Simon answers the phone and tells her, oh, I live here now, and he took me in, he's being so nice. And that, I think, doubles her sorriness, that she's like, oh, I completely misjudged you again. You're trying, you're doing like so much better. She sees the growth.
Yeah. It's kind of like a revealing moment for her of, like you said, actions they speak volumes compared to just words. And so she's learning that not just from, like, typically people will take that phrase as, you can say nice things, but how you follow through with them through your actions, that's what matters. This movie kind of shows you people can be kind of shitty when they're talking, but they can be, their actions can be way better and kind of not make it okay for them to speak the way they do. And I think the movie does a really good job of addressing that, of like, every time he says something dickish, especially to Carol or to Simon, they call him out. Like, they don't take it lightly.
And you should call him out. You should say, that's not okay to say. That's not okay to act like that.
Yeah.
And it hurts my feelings when you do that. I think that she does a good job of that, for sure.
Yeah. So I think the movie does a really good job of showing, like, words can still be pretty devastating for people. But don't take it like as a surface level. There's probably a lot more to it. And then look at the actions that these people can take. But yeah, so this brings me to the line that you brought, or the moment you brought up earlier. He brings Simon home, and, you know, they have their conversation about Carol. And I love Nicholson in that final little bit, because he's so, like, you get the sense he's really, like, the OCD. You kind of feel the OCD-ness is starting to break. You feel he is just letting loose. His hair is a mess. He's like faceplant with Verdell laying on the bed with him. You're like, this dude he's really just shedding all of this shit off. Simon convinces him to go and see Carol and officially tell her, like, I think I like you, like to be open with her. He goes to the door and stops. And I remember, even when I didn't understand it fully, but it being very impactful to me where he doesn't open the door right away. He just stops and Simon's like, what are you waiting for? And it's, I forgot to lock the door. Just huge.
Yeah, huge.
You're like, what? Like,
yeah. He was so invested in Simon moving in, Simon being comfortable, getting everything established that he just didn't think about it. He totally forgot.
And yeah, you just said it really well. Through the course of the movie, he has become so invested in bettering Carol's life and Simon's life. And with Carol's life, it's not just her. Like, he's invested into helping her son and helping her mom and just trying to make life easier and better for these people, to the point that without even realizing it, he's breaking all of those habits and that kind of mental blockage. It's such a cool scene. And then he goes and sees Carol. And I guess this is a scene where it gets stamped as the romantic comedy genre, but she screams, why can't I have a normal boyfriend? Why? And he's like, boyfriend?
Yeah. I love her mom that shows up and she's like, everybody wants that deer. It doesn't exist.
Okay. Let's bring up Carol's mom. She is so lovable. She's the mom everyone needs.
She's so sweet, so supportive.
And so she's real. Great. Their whole argument of her mom just wanting to get out of the house. Like, we have a babysitter. Spencer is feeling 1,000 times better. We can go out. We can have, like, we can do something. And Carol's like blowing up and bringing up things that aren't even on the table. And I love how she's like, Mom, what do you want? Seriously, what do you want? And she's like, the music cuts. It's so somber. It's so, like, ooh, this scene's getting really dramatic. Yeah. And the mom brings her back to how it all started. I just want us to go out. Okay.
Yeah.
I love Carol's mom in this movie. She's such a perfect yin to everyone else's yang. She just is.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Oh, it's the Chinese noodle soup.
Yeah, that's a great scene, the Chinese noodle soup scene, where Melvin brings Simon this soup because he thought of him. He thought it would help him feel better. And they have like their first normal conversation without insults. It's just kind of a deep conversation about, Simon says, I feel this way because of this. And Melvin responds and says, yeah, and they kind of identify with each other. They recognize that, yeah, you're like me. We feel similar things. We live in a similar existence. And they, I guess, see each other as people for the first time instead of adversaries, which is really nice.
Yeah. And I love, this is one of those scenes with just a nice little detail to it. So Simon's completely broke, facing getting kicked out, like facing homelessness. They're sitting on a bench in the apartment. Like, it looks like a park bench or a bus stop bench. Like, which implies that his furniture is like all gone. This is something he dragged up.
Probably sold it.
Yeah. God, this movie. I'm so glad you enjoyed it, Jake. And I'm glad that you know what? I'm glad you waited this long to watch it, because I think you were able to appreciate it way more than maybe you would have, like, in high school even.
Oh, I totally agree. I think that I'm in a place in life where seeing it for the first time, I certainly get it off the bat.
Yeah.
I think if I had seen it in high school or whatever, it would have, kind of like you mentioned, I'm sure it would have been nice. I probably would have been like, it's meh, it's whatever. And it would have probably taken me a long time to see it again, because why bother? But as an adult, I think it is an adult movie. And if you have an adult experience, adult problems, then you identify with it so much better.
Yeah.
I just love, I really found myself several times loving the writing, loving the conversations that these characters have with each other. They have very direct, meaningful conversations several times. And whether it's like over the phone or face to face, I think it's so well written.
Yeah.
And it kind of in a different way than most movies that you would say, oh, that's well written from a plot perspective. This is just sincere dialogue.
Right. Like most of the conversations they have, the principle of them or the depth of them are the kind of conversations I think people should kind of have more often. I know having deep conversations can put people off sometimes because we don't want to have that confrontation because eventually you're going to be confronted. And it sucks every time you are, especially when you can't think of a good thing to say back.
Yeah.
Or you try to fight the resentment style comeback where you're like, well, I'm just going to attack you, because that's a big thing with the conversations and the dialogue in the movie is, with the exception of the times where they will attack each other back and forth, it's usually not like small bickering. It's usually very real. This isn't a fight. This is a discussion. We need to confront this kind of mentality. And people, that shit scares people. It scares me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you have to be vulnerable in it if you're going to connect with someone or tell them about your regrets or your problems or open up about why you react this way or behave this way. It requires being very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that's very scary because you can be rejected. You can not find that person who responds well or gets you. So you shouldn't do it with everybody, but you should not be afraid to do it for sure.
Yeah. Back to kind of how the movie culminates, which is one of the most beautiful, kind of subtle, quiet endings. It might be one of my all-time favorite endings. Just with the way they do incorporate the music into it as the screen fades, with the dialogue fading out. That's kind of a cool part. It's like,
yeah,
it's open-ended. It really is an open-ended movie.
Yeah, this is just a section, a frame of their lives that we got to see, and it makes it very clear that they continue living in their world. They go on to do other things, form a relationship or whatever, that the movie continues beyond what you're allowed to see.
And so Nicholson shows up with why can't I have a normal boyfriend? Why? I will always love him just being like, boyfriend. Like that confirmation of like, okay, we're still in this. Yeah, she likes me. Like, he's so proud.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty amazing that you're not sure if she's thinking of him in that way or not.
Yeah.
And so it's really, when she says that, you're like, oh yeah.
You're like,
happening.
Oh my God. He's actually like, he has done something correct. And it helps that Carol has kind of been forced to realize that, yes, Melvin is capable of some of the greatest humanity moments ever. You just got to help break him through the rest.
Yeah.
When he's like, let's go for a walk. Let's get some fresh air. Like, he starts trying to, like, how can we make things better? We need to mend things. I need to, which is cool to watch him do, because he's still very like, no, I've invested in this, so I need to be the caregiver almost. And you're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. So counter to the beginning of the film, which is the culmination of the growth that you've seen throughout.
Yeah. Him offering, and I love how she's like, well, gee, it's 4 a.m. Walking around seems a little weird to me. And he immediately is like, there's a bakery down the road. We could just be two people that like warm rolls. I don't know what it is about how he says it or the line itself, but I love it. because it seems like
Yeah.
the kind of line, and I've been in like a high stress conversation situation before. I think we all have.
Yeah.
It is genuinely nice when someone is just like, why don't we just go and do something simple? Like,
yeah, it's kind of disarming, resetting the situation.
yeah, and it works like 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
It works. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of his lines it's him having food with Frank at the diner.
Oh, yeah. Before they go on the trip.
Please don't cancel us, but his line of think white and get serious. Like, God damn it.
Yeah, I laughed at that one too.
Sorry, it totally that was bad timing right there.
We were talking about a serious thing.
Moment. We should probably talk about Frank though here in a little bit, because although he only has a few scenes, he's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I miss Cuba Gooding Jr. in movies. He is in several.
Dude, Cuba Gooding Jr. in the 90s was incredible. Actually, his career was going to be incredible, but then he did Boat Trip and wow.
R.I.P.
Anyway.
R.I.P. career.
Yep. Yeah, so they go for the walk. And, he's trying to be romantic all of a sudden. He's like, I want you to hear the rest of that song. And he actually serenades her. And she's like, this is so weird. And you're like, it is, but it's sweet. It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the direction too in this movie, because it's very, I like it when it's purposeful, when there's a lot of meaning here, and they do it here. So he's gone through all this growth. You as the audience, you are really like simple, you understand him. You are on his side. You're rooting for him to be to find love, considering how the movie starts, where you're like, I hate him. Like, I don't know if I'm going to watch a movie with this dude.
Yeah. I actively hope he never finds love.
Right. You're like, I hope this movie ends with him suffering. Fuck this guy. But they have their romantic moment. They kiss. It's beautiful. I can do better. And he kisses her again, and you're like, fuck yeah. But then they start walking again, and he separates because he doesn't step on the cracks.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, I love how they put that scene together, because the music stops. Like, it's quiet again. All you hear is 4 a.m. Manhattan or New York. It's really quiet in this neighborhood. And she even has that, whatever this is, it's not going to work. And you're like, it's kind of that's true. He's got to, you got to close that in. You have to break this barrier. And you can tell he's like, I know. And you can tell, I want to, I'm trying, I really am trying.
He just kissed her. He didn't let anybody touch him ever. And he kissed her. That was one step. And then, he needs to take another step.
But she needs him, to be with her. If he's going to be with her, he's got to be there. And they get to the diner, and I love this ending. I love it. Get to the diner, the lights turn on, and you hear him that's when everything starts fading, is the diner turning on. And you hear him here we go. And he opens the door, and as he opens the door, a worker comes out, and he takes that extra step away to open the door farther. Did you notice this right away? He steps
I don't think so.
on the cracks. His left foot goes farther out as he takes that extra step away. And he's stepping on the cracks as she goes in. She's looking, and he looks down at his foot, and he just kind of and then goes inside and warm rolls. And then, credits roll. I love that. I love how just seconds before he had that quick, got that habit. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And then
in his head, thinking about it
in
too
his
much.
head, it just showed up, and then he let it go completely. And I love his response to it of just like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, to me,
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. To me, the way they end that movie is such a, like, because it is open-ended, you don't know if they would actually make it.
Work out. Yeah.
But you get the sense that no matter what would happen after this part of their stories, you really kind of have a sense of, like, it'll be okay. Like, no matter what, they have all grown, and no matter what, they're all going to be connected to each other because they've all, like you said, that car trip is really used as kind of a, like, pressure cooker. You're all going to be forced to get over your own shit, and you're all going to realize you have a lot of shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I love this movie just so much. It just blows my mind every time I watch it. It really does.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
I'm excited to watch it more over the years and have it grow on me, as I already know that it will.
Yeah.
I really, really liked it, but I'm sure I'll identify with it more and more.
Yeah.
Especially probably as I get closer to their age and all that stuff. So it's really good.
So real quick, Frank.
Yeah.
Probably the most legitimate, abrasive character in the whole movie. He doesn't put up...
He doesn't really want to be. When he first confronts Melvin, he's like, I don't want to be doing this, but nobody else is doing it, so I have to.
Right.
And so I'm going to do it.
And then Melvin...
But I would rather just be an art dealer and be a nice guy.
And I love how Melvin starts, like, adapting Frank's ways or his words into his own life. Like,
he's like, oh, that was a good story you told about how
I'm going to steal it.
Yeah.
But Frank's hilarious. He's so blunt about everything. But the scene where they're having lunch together and Frank's trying to tell him, like, I need you to take him on this trip. Frank is the only character that, like, just acknowledges change, acknowledges at what point in the story you are at and how frustrating he can be.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's important for that
He's
reason.
like, he is the character that's like, Melvin's a dick, but he's growing people. He's doing big things. I love, like, Simon says you brought him soup the other night. You take him like a dog. You take care of the waitress.
Yeah.
They're all meeting at the car. Simon's getting a hug from Frank. Melvin's like, soak it up, ladies. It's the last hug you're going to get for a few days. And Frank just wagging the finger at him. I love this movie. I've been talking a lot. You talk now.
I don't have too much more to say. I think we can probably wrap it up. But yeah, I loved it as well. It's kind of surprisingly good. And like I said at the beginning, it's disarming, especially coming from me who didn't really know that much about it. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And so I was learning all of the things along the way, kind of how you should when you see a movie for the first time. And I just thought it did such a great job of showing me who these people are, where they're at, and how they change over time is something that I'll always take away from it. Always remember that.
Yeah.
It's such a good example of that.
The writing it's so good. This is a movie I would genuinely want to read the script.
Yeah.
Just to get a sense of how they managed to write this and to see, how much the actors ended up just kind of adapting or kind of doing their own little actory re-edits on the dialogue and all that. It was kind of free range. But yeah, I just like, I knew you were going to like it, but I was nervous that you'd be like, eh.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, certainly not.
But I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. And I'm also really glad that you, like, got it, that you were able to see, like, the deeper parts of it. And
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's deeper than is obvious going into it. And kind of as I was first watching it, I was like, seems at this on the surface like it's somewhat basic.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just like a basic 90s kind of comedy. It's not like over the top comedy, but generally comedy. But the more it went on and the more I saw the characters and I understood who this person is, why they're acting this way, how this is how this behavior contradicts how they're presenting themselves to be. And yeah, as soon as you start seeing that growth, as soon as you start caring about this person that you immediately hated, you're like, oh, this movie is changing me. It's affecting me on a serious level. And so you have to start paying attention at that point.
I think it's such a cool movie where the core theme is just basic humanity, basic goodness or kindness. Like, through all the shit, it really has to culminate to this. I mean, that's... God damn it, I love this movie.
Yeah, and that people have different life experiences, and some people have nice experiences, some people don't have nice experiences. One of my favorite parts was when they're on the trip, they're in the car, and Jack Nicholson's like, some people's experiences are they have picnics with noodle salad. Not anybody in this car, but some people somewhere have nice experiences, nice memories. We are fucked up. We have terrible experiences, but it's all we have, and it's what we're going to work with. And I thought that was really nice.
Just not anybody in this car. I do love how he says that.
Like a band of misfits. I like that.
So here's a question, not a deep question for you or anything, but having watched the movie, you wear glasses.
Yes.
Have you tried his little eyebrow sunglass drop yet? Hey!
Yeah. I don't do it as good as him. He does it very smooth. He is like, Jack Nicholson has like the most pronounced eyebrows, and he can like move them in such significant and serious ways that I couldn't possibly like dream to do, but it's fun to watch, and that's why it's so entrancing, I think. I never thought I'd call Jack Nicholson entrancing, but there you go.
I could. He is.
He is.
Yeah, so that's as good as it gets. Man, it's so good.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention the title of the movie. It's one of those movies where they do actually say the title in the film. And it's one of the funniest scenes. Comes out of the therapist, and the waiting room
the
is
title's a joke.
Full. And you're like, oh my God.
At the psychiatrist's office, and he just turns to all these people that have fucked up lives and goes, this is as good as it
what if
gets.
this is as good as it gets? The best part of that is you hear the lady, oh no.
Yeah.
It's just such a gem of a movie. Obviously, I always encourage people, make sure you watch this or like get people to watch this movie. Trying to get people to watch this these days, I could see being kind of difficult, but
problematic.
I mean, in all honesty, people should watch this one. I mean, to understand.
Oh, I think so for sure. I think we are too quick. If this is my message, this is my soapbox moment.
All right.
I think we are too quick these days to completely write someone off for one thing they said or one thing they tweeted or one thing in the past that was offensive or abrasive. I think that we don't have enough grace for people and understand that people are complicated and they can do and say things for a million different reasons. It's not, oh, you said this, you are immediately a bigot or a racist or a terrible person at your core. There are a lot of reasons people do things, and if we take the time to understand people and where they come from and why they are the way they are and what their family life was like and how they grew up, like this movie does, I think that we would be a better society and we would care for each other and understand each other, at least see each other eye to eye. Don't have to agree on everything, don't have to like what they're saying. You can certainly say that's mean or that's hurtful or you hurt my feelings. And you don't have to have a relationship with them. These relationships work out. Not everybody's just going to. But I think that a little bit of grace, a little bit of empathy goes a long way.
Yeah.
And for someone like Melvin, who started with zero empathy and grew it over time, he was changed by the people around him that changed him. And so if you are around someone who is abrasive or rude or mean, you can change them by being gracious and graceful and all that stuff. So that's what the message I took.
That's a pretty good one.
Was.
See, I told you, this movie has like, there's a lot to it. And it came out in 97.
It's deep.
Yeah, it's a way deeper movie than I think people, when it came out, expected. And I think it's an important one that people should probably be watching just to kind of be confronted with everything you said. You put that so well, man. That was...
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that was well done, sir. A little golf clap for you.
So, yeah, I guess let us know what you think.
Yeah.
If there's any parts you thought we should have talked about or any messages you took, if you like the movie or don't like the movie, even something as basic as that, reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram at Movie Boners. You can call in, leave a voice message, rant for a minute or so about what you like about it or where we're right or where we're wrong. Always happy to hear from all of you. So that's always fun.
Yeah. And I think that's it. Right?
That's basically it. Unless you want to talk about next week.
Oh, yeah.
What we're doing. We do have a plan.
We do have a plan. We're diving into... I think we've like hinted to this a handful of times. Like we did the animated movies, but no Disney. We did...
we did musicals but no Disney.
So we're finally diving into we're a top 10 episode, which we haven't done for a while.
Yeah. Back to our roots.
Yeah, top 10 animated Disney films. So go revisit your childhood, rewatch all these animated Disney. It's
very nostalgic.
We are including like the Disney Pixar movies, so just needs to be produced by Disney, which there's really not a lot not produced by Disney.
Not these days.
But yeah, so go revisit. I'm looking forward to hearing what your list is. I have an idea of what your list might end up looking like. And I think you and I are going to have at least one or two crossovers.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm thinking we will.
Yeah.
And if we don't, it'll probably be one of those where we're like, dang it, I should have wrote that one in there.
Yeah. I think you're going to be spot on. Yep.
But
so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun. I've already started and it's been a fun nostalgic week so far. So
yes, it has.
Check that out next time. And I think that's all we have.
That's it. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time.